Hello, I'm Martyn Warwick from TelecomTV, and we're here at the Managed Services World Congress in London, where I'm talking with Andreas Herzog, who is the President of the Managed Services Division at Alcatel-Lucent. Andreas, welcome. What are the different kinds of managed services that Alcatel-Lucent offers?
We have talked about historical development of solutions, managed services solutions, and that we are today in a situation where we again enhance our portfolio. So let me put that into the context of our overall portfolio. So it started with very simple services. Actually, it was rather out-tasking. I would not really call it managed services, but it was in a space of running a network, and that was offering network operation center services. From there, we enhanced the scope and we combined it with other parts, other functions within an operator space, within an operator domain of services. And we created a solution which is known by the market as network outsourcing. So that is a network-focused end-to-end process outsourcing where we typically take over people, assets, not network assets, but operational assets like spare parts, cars, similar tools, and also subcontracts which are related to such a scope of work. And this is, I would say, at the moment, the majority of existing deals, not just for Alcatel-Lucent, but for the whole market. Now, going from there, obviously we have also solutions for greenfield operators, meaning that an operator has just acquired a license. It is looking for a full turnkey solution, including managed services. We are providing, in that case, the same services, but obviously it's not in an outsourcing model because we are not supposed to take away existing people. There are no existing people. We have to provide these services with our own people, with our own staff, with our own resources. But the scope of such a managed services solution is comparable. This is what we have on the market today. What we need to do is to evolve from there, to develop from there, and to go more from a network-centric view to a service-centric view, simply because that is helping our customers to transform their view, again, from network-centric to customer-centric. And so just to use a term which is known on the market, which is used on the market, that is end-to-end service operations. Just to simply describe that, that just means that the network obviously is still in the scope of such a solution, but we need to add service platforms, content platforms, and customer premise environment on the other side of the value chain. And then I would say not the last step of the evolution, because I see this as a journey and never as something which will end somewhere, but as a foreseeable next step is then the end user experience solutions, meaning that things like business support systems, customer care are going to be included in a scope. That's basically the bandwidth we have. And then there's one very important point which is going to be added in parallel, and that is to include infrastructure. So we see a strong trend on the market triggered by network sharing agreements, triggered by the need of deploying new technologies in a relatively fast way, that customers are looking also for solutions which include network assets, network infrastructure into such managed services solutions.
Okay, Andreas, let's get down to the nitty-gritty then. Give us a couple of concrete examples from the real world where Alcatel-Lucent customers have benefited from your managed services offerings.
One of our first solutions, one of our first projects was Telecom New Zealand. The value for the customer there was a very specific one, and that's why I always like to refer to that example, because it is so obvious. Telecom New Zealand was in a situation where it was obvious that due to new competition on their home market, they needed to find differentiators to keep their customers, to enhance their customer base, to protect their customer base. And one of the decisions they took at this time was to change from a pure legacy TDM-based network into something which is IP-based, which is allowing them to be much more aggressive in respect of services offered to their end customers. Now, having said that, they recognized quite quickly that it does not end with just a selection of an equipment vendor who provides that new technology and who helps to integrate it. Basically, to leverage that technology requires also a complete transformation of their own operational process and also of some business processes. Like, for example, they needed to change billing systems, they needed to change operator support systems. So they took a decision relatively early. They decided, let's have a combined approach. We buy some equipment from different vendors, but the IP-based technology from Alcatel-Lucent, and let's give at the same time a full end-to-end outsourcing solution also to Alcatel-Lucent in order to secure that we have the best combined efforts between us deploying the technology and basically Alcatel-Lucent helping us to sweat the asset. So that was a very early example of a specific situation where managed services was helping to address that situation. Let me jump now to the other extreme, to our most recent example. Different situation, but again, a very nice example for a comprehensive managed services solution, and that is Bharti in India. The reason why Bharti was looking for a managed services partner was because they had a quite aggressive plan to deploy broadband wireline network. Bharti is a very large mobile operator in India with still extremely high growth rates. But at the same time, there's a trend in India now to provide combined offers between wireless services and broadband wireline-based services. And so they had extremely aggressive rollout plans. At the same time, when you look into the labor market in India, it's very difficult, on one hand, to find and to attract employees to stay on board. There is a very high employee churn, and that's the nature of the Indian labor market. So there was a huge risk that Bharti will not be able to build the resources and to keep the resources who are able to deploy that strong growth model. So basically, again, they were looking for a partner who was ready to share that risk with them or to take away a major part of that risk in that aggressive rollout scheme. And therefore, they awarded to Alcatel-Lucent a solution, a managed services contract, which covers on one hand the deployment of all infrastructure which is necessary to support that wireline expansion, but at the same time also awarded the whole operation and maintenance to us. And the reason for that is that actually, let's not forget, such a wireline connection, such a broadband connection is only getting relevant for an operator when it's generating revenues, which means it needs to be in full operation. And by having one partner who is taking the end-to-end responsibility from deployment, connection of subscribers until basically operating and maintaining it, it is a riskless approach and a very attractive approach because this managed services provider is able to commit end-to-end key performance indicators. At the same time, it is combined with a very attractive pricing model. So it's a combination of volume-based pricing for the deployment activities, but a real, true revenue-sharing model for the operation and maintenance.
What do you perceive as being the main differences and the drivers between what's happening as far as managed services are concerned in the mature markets and in the growth markets?
Well, especially now again, I'm speaking about that obviously from the managed services perspective, sure. But the main difference between mature markets and emerging markets is actually that the trend on mature markets is currently to enhance the scope of managed services solutions. And basically generate more savings and also to a certain extent faster time to market based on such enhanced solutions, whereas in emerging markets it is more to deploy completely new models which are basically driven by the fact that there is a strong demand to deploy huge amounts of new infrastructure, and at the same time having no guarantee that this infrastructure will ever generate the related revenues. And so managed services solutions more on the emerging markets need to be more creative in respect of the business model, which means managed infrastructure is definitely something which will be very interesting on those markets, meaning that customers don't have to pay network assets, network equipment upfront, but it will be basically merged into a joint OPEX payment solution, including the services. And on the other hand, as I said, it will also go very strongly into pricing models like revenue sharing, which guarantees that basically the operator shares revenues which they are really generating based on that.
Andreas Herzog, thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.